Okay, it's day 267. Here's the daily update. We're going to start with RT. Zelensky backtracks on missile claims. He says, quote, "I don't know what happened this time. We do not know for 100%. He conceded on Thursday. Now, remember, he had said there's a Russian missile hit Poland. Well, you'll understand why when we get to the next article of all the missiles that were raining down on Ukraine and how you could get that wrong. But I'm sure that there was a Russian missile, and I'm sure that we were launching air defense missiles," he added. Okay, and I think that's fair. That's what's going on in his context as he's making that claim. But to go to the Alex Jones and Tucker Carlson kind of bizarro space where they say, well, he was just trying to do a false flag operation to draw NATO into World War III. I don't think that's true. Okay, here is the ISW's assessment yesterday. Now, here's what was actually happening when he made that assessment about that a Russian rocket went there, because he's not firing on Polish territory. The Ukrainian General Staff noted on November 16th, Russian forces launched over 90 caliber cruise missiles and 11 drones over the course of November 15th. So more than 100 something are coming at you, right? And 11 drones over the course, yeah. Ukrainian Air Force Command reported that Ukrainian air defense and ground forces shot down 75 missiles and 10 of the 11 drones. So they shot down 85% of it. Something still got through. Everything's going up. Everything's coming down. And you can see where in the fog of war, he could make that misunderstanding. Now, again, he knows he's not firing it at the pole, so it makes sense for him to be saying this. This is why, by the way, you have to tell the truth, and you have to tell the truth all the time to the degree that you know it, because he can't afford to lose Western support by being shady, by running some kind of false flag operation. This would be the death knell for him. The Russian information space largely followed the official Kremlin framing of the military missile issue on the strike on Polish territory as Western provocation. The Russian Missile Defense the Russian Ministry of Defense stated a deliberate provocation within the aim of escalating the situation, and Russian mill bloggers widely accused Western and Ukrainian officials of trying to falsely blame Russia for the strike in order to justify increased support of Ukraine and further escalation in Eastern Europe. Okay, so that's what's going on, and that's what you saw when I showed you. Go back one video and you'll see I took unpacked Alex Jones and InfoWars and his bizarre world kind of thing about this earlier today. Here's the UK Ministry of Defense talking about it. This is likely the largest number of strikes that Russia has conducted in a single day since the first week of the invasion. So how could Zelensky get it wrong? If you had 100 missiles raining down on your country in one day, you'd be thinking, yeah, it's probably them too. I'm pretty sure. So give the guy a break. Continued strikes at this scale are drawing deeply upon Russia's reserves of conventional cruise missiles. So that's the good news, the silver lining, if there is one. Okay, another RT article. Zelensky could be lying on purpose to get us into a war, said Fox News host Tucker Carlson on Wednesday night. Now, I watched that video. It was terrible. It was absolutely astonishingly terrible. Now, this is Tucker Carlson, and I don't know why he has just bought Russian propaganda points hook, line, and sinker, but he apparently has. Zelensky was, quote, commanding the U.S. to lead the world into Third World War immediately after the blast, Carlson told his viewers. The only problem is that it was completely and utterly wrong. Okay. So this is RT carrying Tucker Carlson, and they're making great hay of those kind of talking points. Okay, next. There's tortures. This is Lubansk. He's the Verkhovna Rada. That's their parliament commissioner for human rights. He's saying there is a difference, even in comparison with the territories of Kharkiv and Kiev, in the number of tortures, the scale of tortures that he has seen in Kherson. I've never seen such a scale before. I personally visited the torture facilities in various regions of Ukraine. The scale is simply terrible. Okay, so yeah, and we're going to find more and more of that as more land gets liberated over time. 63 bodies of Ukrainians tortured by Russians already found in liberated Kherson Oblast. And then we find that Russia's also been looting 15,000 artworks, and I talked about this the other day, medical equipment, anything that can be plundered from Kherson Oblast. Generally, if you're a soldier, you're not supposed to be shopping while you're off in occupied territory, and so that's probably a bad sign. Okay, another RT article. Ukraine lied to NATO over the missile strike. Situation is ridiculous, and Kiev's leadership is destroying confidence. A bloc official allegedly claimed. Okay, so this one was fun because Ukraine has been accused of openly lying about a missile strike that hit Poland, killing 2 earlier this week. How do we know? It was a citing an unnamed diplomat from a NATO country. So you can find at least one diplomat somewhere in all of NATO that will say that. So this doesn't move me. What is he? Is he a bureaucrat? Is he somebody big? Is he? I mean, are we talking Biden stature? Or are we talking about the lowest dog catcher? I mean, what is it? So it's just, but they're going to keep pounding that perspective as much as they can because there's a hot war, and then there's an information war and a political war and everything else, and this is the information war. Okay. 3 men found guilty of murdering 298 people, shooting out of a plane. This was in 2014, and this was going back to occupied Ukraine way back in 2014. Murders of 298 people who died in the 2014 downing of Malaysia Airlines flight MH17 over Ukraine, delivering the verdict in The Hague. So the good news is the verdict was just delivered. So this should be putting Russia on notice. We're going to keep coming for you. So that's the good news here. The bad news is that they're not bringing anybody back. And I mean, you can't. And it took this long in order for it to happen. Here's another article about the same thing. The first 3, the Russian to Ukraine. The Russians Igor Girkin and Sergei Dubinsky, and a Ukrainian national, caused the missile attack, which led to the deaths. The 4th defendant, who had a defense lawyer, he was acquitted. So 3 out of the 4 were prosecuted for it, and good that the families finally have some closure for that. Russian refuseniks. I've never heard this term, but refuseniks are people who refuse to continue serving. And apparently in the Russian military, they could say, I don't want to fight anymore. And they just sit around in the basement somewhere. And it's not pleasant, but at least you're not getting killed. On the military side, Ukraine has the edge against Russia as winter descends, says the U.S. Defense Secretary. So here, as winter comes to Europe, Ukrainian forces backed by the U.S. and its allies have the upper hand, according to Lloyd Austin. He said this on Wednesday. I think Ukrainians will have the upper hand. You Russians, on the other hand, mean that they're fighting in a foreign country. The Ukrainians have challenged their supply lines. It will be very difficult for them to get the kinds of gear into their troops that they need to be able to fight effectively. And so you see this kind of thing, and then you also see this kind of thing. This is U.S. Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Mark Milley. So they're different functions, but they're essentially the number 1 and number 2, the kind of top military generals in the U.S. Russians have failed every single time. They've lost strategically, they've lost operationally, and I repeat, they lost tactically. What they've tried to do, they failed at. The strategic reframing of their objectives, their illegal invasion, have all failed, every single one of them, said Milley. And I think, we're seeing that writ large on the world stage. You can send 100 missiles, but that doesn't mean that you're gaining any ground, and you're really not gaining ground. And you were supposed to be this really tough, like second world's largest army, and wow, you've been pantsed on the world stage. So it's a very bad scene for Russia right now. But here's Pravda. There is no point for Russia to deploy missiles in Cuba for one simple reason. Why? This is, again, Russian propaganda. Why? Because there's no point in deploying Russian missiles on the territory of Cuba today. Why? Because we have our sights set on Washington at all times. Ha 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 ha. Okay, so this is the kind of propaganda that goes on in Pravda and RT and PASS and that kind of thing. Okay, so that's a quick run through all the news headlines just to keep you updated. Thank you for your time, and thank you for caring about Ukraine. If you have not subscribed before, please do so. I'll be back tomorrow.